The United High Commissioner for Refugees is a global organization that is dedicated to safety, protecting lives, protecting rights, and creating a better future for refugees, forcibly displaced people, and stateless people worldwide. The global organization was founded on December 14, 1950, in Geneva, Switzerland. The UNHCR has over 137 operations worldwide, and over 18,000 employees all over the world. The organization helps refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced people, and stateless people. The nonprofit organization is focused on making sure that everyone who has fled violence, fear of persecution, war, or disaster has the right to claim asylum in a safe country and become a refugee. The UNHCR provides food, water, medical care, shelter, and life-saving care to refugees worldwide. The UNHCR runs off volunteer donations. The organization has refugee camps for refugees to have temporary living facilities. It is an advocacy for refugees to support rights above that of the governments. The organization is in 133 countries and 550 locations. The UNHCR headquarters is in Geneva. The UNHCR aims to provide refugees to be able to go back home to a safe country, and they find solutions for them to rebuild their lives in another country, if they are not able to go back to their home country safely. Canadian Council for Refugees. The Canadian Council for Refugees was created in 1978. The CCR gives refugees a voice, protection, rights, safety, sponsorship, and the well-being of migrants and refugees in Canada and even globally. The CCR has been recognized as one of the key advocates for refugees and immigrants in Canada and for protecting their rights. Committed to social justice and transformation by challenging racism, colonialism, and intersecting oppressions, we undertake policy monitoring, advocacy, network building, and public education to empower members and communities to bring about systemic change. ccrweb.ca. Immigrant. An immigrant is someone who leaves their home, and often family and loved ones back at home to have a better life in a new country. Immigrants arrive in a new country. Immigrants often move countries to offer their family a better future. Immigrants must apply for immigrant status and be accepted to become an immigrant. Immigrants often have struggles like having to learn new languages, finding new jobs, being alone and starting all new, doing jobs that no one wants to do to make ends meet, return to college to get a better job. In Canada, immigrants are broken up into three categories: economic contribution, reuniting families, refugees, and humanitarian. Immigrants go through an extensive screening process to come into Canada. They must be in good health, have not committed any serious crime, and do not pose to be a threat to Canadians, because Canada wants their citizens to be safe. A person who comes to live permanently in a foreign country. OxfordDictionary.com. Examples: Canada welcomed 437,180 immigrants in 2022. The country has a large immigration status. Refugees. A refugee is a person who is out of their home country and who has fled from violence, fear of persecution, wars, and conflict that can affect their life. Many refugees have a fear of being persecuted because of race, religion, and social groups. Other reasons may be because of natural disasters and extreme poverty. For one to be a refugee in Canada, they must fit the requirements of the country. Refugees flee from their home country, leaving everything behind, and often leaving behind their homes, jobs, and loved ones. For one to become a refugee, they must claim asylum and fit the refugee requirement of that country. Refugees cross international borders, leaving their home country. Refugees often cannot be sent back to their home country. Refugees must claim asylum in the country they want to permanently live in the country. Refugees are people who have claimed asylum. Asylum seeker. An asylum seeker is a person fleeing their home country because their home country is unsafe, their life is being threatened, and they fear being persecuted. Asylum seekers will come to a safe country wanting to claim asylum in that country. Asylum seekers will go to a safe country and apply to claim asylum in that country because they want to presently live in that country. Although an asylum seeker and a refugee sound remarkably similar, they are not the same thing. A refugee has claimed asylum in a safe country, but an asylum seeker has not claimed asylum in a safe country yet, so they are not refugees. Quoted definition: a person who has left their home country as a political refugee and is seeking asylum in another. OxfordDictionary.com. Examples: a young lady was an asylum seeker, so she would have secondary protection and international protection. Only asylum seekers who are granted refugee status are allowed to work in the country. OxfordDictionary.com. Internally displaced people. An internally displaced person is a person or group of people forced or obligated to flee their homes or habitual places of living. This is a result of conflict, situations of violence, violations of human rights, or natural or human-made disasters. Internally displaced people are forced to move, but they remain within their home country and have not crossed international borders. People become internally displaced when they are forced to leave their homes due to conflict, violence, human rights violations, natural hazards, or other crises within the borders of their country. Stateless people. Stateless people are people who do not have a nationality, and no place considers them a citizen. Stateless people can live in a place for many years and even many generations, but do not have citizenship in that place, so they do not have the same rights as a citizen living in the same place. Like they do not have the right to vote, often stateless people also do not have proof of a passport or any proof of their identity. Stateless people are almost invisible if you want to put it into other words, because they do not really exist, because they do not have any proof of their identity like a passport to show. They often cannot do things such as travel, go to school, see a doctor, get married, own a house, open a bank account, and vote. Often for stateless people to live and support their families they must work illegally, and they fear that they will be detained, deported, or even exploited. Registering a birth or a death can also be almost impossible for a stateless person. War refugee. A war refugee is a person who is fleeing their home country because of war. They also may be leaving for other violence-related things such as armed conflict, direct fighting, and assaults of combat groups. War refugees flee wars and go across international borders to live in a country that is safe and peaceful. War refugees also may have to leave their homes, jobs, and family behind, which can be extremely hard for them. A person who leaves their country to escape from the effects of armed conflicts, direct effects of fighting, assaults of combat troops, displacements, etc. Migrants. Migrants are people who leave their home country to better their life, such as job opportunities, to get a better education, and to join friends or family. Migrants may move within their home country or cross international borders. Migrants can often return to their home country without violence, but often have good reasons to leave. Migrants can permanently and temporarily live in the country. Migrants leave for many reasons such as poverty, food shortage, or other challenges such as natural disasters or environmental problems, which can help improve their life and their families. Different countries have different laws for migrants and are treated differently than refugees. The word migrant refers to someone who moves to other places in search of work or better living conditions. The word immigrant refers to those who have moved to foreign countries permanently for work or better living conditions. It can be used both as a noun and an adjective. Economic immigrant. Economic immigrants are often selected to come to a country to be an employee or an employer. Economic immigrant are immigrants who help countries run and have employees and qualified workers to fill certain jobs. Economic immigrants contribute to society. Quoted definition: person who leaves their country of origin purely for economic reasons that are not in any way related to the refugee definition, to seek material improvements in their livelihood. home-affairs.ec.europa.eu. The movement of people from one country to another to benefit from greater economic opportunities in the receiving country. Immigrant sponsored by family. An immigrant sponsored by family is an immigrant who leaves their home country and comes to live with a family member. Most immigrants sponsored by family leave to live a better life with their family. A family member who sponsors a family immigrant and allows them to get permanent residency in that country. Family recitation is especially important to Canada. A Canadian citizen, permanent Canadian resident, or an Indian who is registered under the Indian Act. A sponsor must be at least 18 years of age. The sponsor and immigrant they want to sponsor must sign a form saying that they are willing and able to help the immigrant financially if needed. Sponors can sponsor spouse, common law partner, conjugal partner, parents, grandparents, specific orphan siblings and relatives, and those that meet rare conditions. All applications must be met, and even the slightest error can result in a refusal. Conventional refugee. A conventional refugee is a person who meets the refugee definition requirements in the 1951 Geneva Convention relating to refugees' status. The person or people must be outside their home country. They must also have a fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinions. Quoted definition: you are a convention refugee abroad if you are afraid of persecution because of your race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group or political opinion, and https://www.canada.ca/and/immigration-refugee. Person in need of protection. A person in need of protection is a person who is in a country and cannot return to their home country in a safe way. They might not be able to safely return to their home country, because if they return, they may face danger of torture, risk of cruel and unusual treatment or punishment, and/or risk to their life. A person in need of protection is someone who would likely face at least one of the following risks if they had to return to their home country: torture or, in some cases, a risk to their life or a risk of cruel and unusual treatment or punishment. Ports of entry. Ports on entries are places that people arrive in when they get into a country. When people arrive in Canada, they will arrive at a port of entry, which is a place that is selected as an entry point into Canada. Ports of entries are selected by the Government of Canada. A port of entry is often an airport or land crossing that people stop at in Canada. Why is immigration important to Canada's economy? Immigration is important to Canada because immigrants contribute to Canadian society in an incredibly positive way. In Canada, we are underpopulated because Canadians are having fewer children and retiring at a younger age, and less children in school, so the workforce has fewer employees. Many jobs Canadians do not want to do, immigrants will often come and fill those jobs. Immigrants aged 25 to 54 make up an important contribution across all the sectors of Canada's economy, according to Statistics Canada, as of May 2021. 38% working in the transportation and warehousing sector are immigrants. Over 25% working in professional, scientific, and technical services are immigrants. Over 20% working in construction are immigrants. People working in sports-related jobs are made up of 20% immigrants. 23% working as a registered nurse's aides and related jobs are immigrants. 37% of pharmacists are immigrants. 36% of physicians are immigrants. 39% of dentists are immigrants. 54% of dental technologists and related occupations are immigrants. Also, over 1 inch for worker in the food and beverage sector are immigrants. Over 468,000 immigrants work in healthcare-related jobs. Immigrants increase Canada's labor force. Canada continues to increase the number of immigrants coming into Canada. In 2023, Canada hopes to let in 465,000 immigrants in 2024. What is the Safe Third Country Agreement? The Safe Third Country Agreement is an agreement first proposed by Canada to help the Government of Canada manage access to the refugee system in each country for people crossing over the Canada-US land border. Since 2004, Canada has thought of the U.S.A as a safe country for refugees. The agreement is a part of the U.S. Canada Smart Action Plan. If a refugee arrived in the U.S., they cannot come to Canada because Canada has thought of the U.S. as a safe country. There are a few ways to get acceptations to the agreement, such as the agreement considers the importance of family unity, family member exceptions, unaccompanied minors exception, document holder exceptions, unaccompanied minors exception, and they must meet the criteria of Canada's immigration legislation. How is the Safe Third Country Agreement controversial? The Safe Third Country violates the Charter rights, Section 7 of the Charter and Section 15 of the Charter. Refugees sent back to the U.S. are at risk of persecution, torture, death. The U.S. is not safe for all refugees. One of the only ways that refugees can come into Canada from the U.S. is that they can go through flighting into an airport in Canada, because Canada will think that if they can afford a plane, they can contribute to Canada's economy. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=UQ2OIZMK3 for E